Thank you guys for joining us for this part two in our interview with Dr. Craig. In part one, I think we left off discussing the B theory of time as it relates to professional thinkers in the field.
Yes, and the remainder of the question concerns a point that Ed Feser makes that I believe the questioner wanted to talk about.
Okay, yeah, let's read the rest of that piece. Once again, this is Ian. Ian is a chapter director in Wales on the call here today. Ian says, he quotes Feser. Feser says, the universe, however physics and scientific cosmology end up describing it, even if it turned out to be a universe without a temporal beginning, even if it is a four-dimensional block universe, even if Hawking's closed universe model turned out to be correct, even if we should really think in terms of a multiverse rather than a single universe, will the Aristotelian arguments necessarily exhibit just these features? Potentialities needing actualization, composition, contingency, etc. And thus it will, as a matter of metaphysical necessity, require a cause outside of it. And only that which is pure actuality, devoid of potentiality, only what is utterly simple or non-composite, only something whose essence or nature just is existence itself, only what is therefore in no way contingent but utterly necessary, only that, the classical theist maintains, could in principle be the ultimate terminus of explanation, whatever the specific scientific details turn out to be.
Mm-hmm. Now, Feser is a Thomist, and so he gives a Thomistic spin to the argument from contingency. I prefer Gottfried Leibniz's formulation of the argument, which doesn't depend on the underpinning of Aristotelian metaphysics. But I think that the central point that Feser is making, namely that an argument for the existence of God as a metaphysically necessary being on the basis of the contingency of the universe goes through regardless of the theory of time that you hold to, regardless of the infinity of the past, regardless of the scientific model that you hold to. As long as the universe exists contingently, it needs to be grounded in a transcendent, metaphysically necessary being. And so I do fully endorse that argument from contingency.
And I think you do such a great job, sir, when you help your, I don't want to say opponents, but when you're doing these talks, they don't seem to grasp that part. They don't seem to grasp that in their making models, that as long as it's a contingent model, it still is susceptible to the argument. And I think you do a great job of illustrating that for them.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question comes from Matthew Winter. Matthew is joining us on the call today. I'm not sure, Matthew, can you unmute and possibly tell us where you are calling in from, sir?
Yeah, I'm calling from Helsinki, Finland.
Oh. Do you know R.T. Mullins at the university?
I know of him, but I haven't met him.
Okay. I've been collaborating a little bit with him at the University of Helsinki.
Cool.
So Matthew, we'll be able to share your question now. Thank you, sir, for unmuting. Matthew's question states, in your paper on the Kalam, you talk about how something coming into existence doesn't have to mean existing at a point if we think of a line as logically prior to the points designated on that line. But if we think of a line being logically prior to a point, wouldn't that line require a point in order for it to start or end? Wouldn't the beginning of time require an initial point?
The short answer is no. I think that most of us in our high school geometry classes were taught that a line is a composition of points. It's an agglomeration of points. And what I'm suggesting is that the Aristotelian perspective on this is very different. Rather, the line as a whole